But you remember the Timberwolves drafting Chris Dunn 5th overall over all these players? Or Jimmy Butler beating the starting team with third stringers? How did this franchise go from dysfunction to the Western Conference Finals? This is their rebuild. So let's start back in 2013, and this was the Timberwolves team. They did have a good player in Kevin Love, but with the rest of the supporting cast, the Wolves were going nowhere. So they decided to go into a full rebuild mode, trading Love away to Cleveland for Andrew Wiggins and drafting Zach LaVine in the first round. In the following year, with the number 1 pick, they drafted Kentucky's Karl Anthony Towns. And in only 2 years, it looked like the Timberwolves had a new emerging superstar lineup. But their first season was rough, with a 29-53 record. They showed signs of improvement, with the biggest being Karl Anthony Towns, with him winning unanimous Rookie of the Year, averaging 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks per game. The next year, they picked up Chris Dunn in the draft at 5th overall, above some great players in Murray, Sabonis, Siakam, and DeJounte Murray. And they also decided to hire former Chicago Bulls coach Tom Thibodeau as head coach and GM to stress a more defensive approach to the team. And with these moves, there were high expectations for where this team could go, but they didn't meet them at all, as they finished with a 31-51 record. Their biggest issue was a lack of a true star that could take over games down the stretch. Both Cat and Wiggins were playing well, but not the stars they needed to be down the stretch when they needed a win. So the following year, they made their first big move into win now mode, trading for Jimmy Butler from the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and the 7th overall pick. With Butler, expectations suddenly skyrocketed for the young team, with some even saying they could get a high seed in the tough West.
Oh my God, did Chicago get punched in their face to a two-way star, NBA star?
With Jimmy Butler, the Timberwolves finally got their finisher and made the playoffs with a 47-35 record, good for the 8th seed in the Western Conference. And while they were eliminated in 5 games by the Rockets, it was a young team that just made the playoffs and the future looked bright. Until everything went south again, as the following year, drama started to emerge from Butler's camp. He first rejected a contract extension for 4 years, and then he decided to request a trade in only his second season. He felt like the team was too soft and not serious about winning. But the coach and GM didn't want to trade Butler, leading to this crazy climax where Jimmy Butler reportedly showed up to practice and beat the starting lineup with a third-string bench team, all while yelling that the Wolves fucking needed him and you can't win without him. After that, the Wolves decided to rebuild again, trading away Butler and firing Tibbs to start fresh. And the following year was one of the worst, as midway through the season, the Wolves were at the bottom of the Western Conference, leading them into trying a new strategy, trading away Andrew Wiggins to the Warriors in exchange for D'Angelo Russell. The idea was that D'Lo was close friends with Karl Anthony Towns and a high-scoring guard who could complement his playstyle. But this late move wasn't enough to get them into playoff contention, as they ended with a 19-45 record, failing to even qualify for the COVID bubble. So the following year, the Timberwolves finally decided to make a good draft pick. With the first overall pick, they added the dynamic guard from Georgia, Anthony Edwards, while also trading for rookie Jaden McDaniels at the 28th pick. On top of that, their recent G League signing of Naz Reid played well enough to earn a permanent spot on their NBA roster. With Edwards and McDaniels, the rebuild looked better, and the hope was that this young core would develop. And the young players ended up getting a lot of opportunities to do so, as throughout the season, both Cat and D'Lo had injuries plus COVID and some personal issues, which kept them off the court. Without their 2 best players, the Timberwolves ended with a 23-49 record, but this allowed Ant to thrive, having a great rookie year, averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, coming second in Rookie of the Year voting. Plus, midway through the year, the Timberwolves made a great signing, firing their old head coach and replacing him with Chris Finch, the Raptors' old assistant coach, who dramatically changed the team. Finch emphasized a more dynamic offense, focusing on ball movement and spacing. One of his biggest adjustments was moving Cat from just a post-up player to also shooting and passing big to stretch the floor. Finch also realized that the Timberwolves weren't going to win unless they developed their players more, leading him into encouraging Ant, Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid to attack the basket, take more shots, and improve their decision-making. And the next season, with Chris Finch at the helm and really not a lot of other changes except the signing of Patrick Beverley, the Timberwolves drastically improved. They finished with a 46-36 record, and after a dramatic play-in win over the Clippers and this hilarious Patrick Beverley moment, the Timberwolves secured their first playoff spot since Jimmy Butler left. And although they faced the tough Grizzlies, they managed to take the series to 6 games before being eliminated, a huge improvement from their 23-49 record just a year ago. In the next season, the Timberwolves made their craziest move yet, hiring new GM Tim Connolly, who made the most controversial trade in Timberwolves history, as he traded away 4 first-round picks, Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Walker Kessler, and Jared Vanderbilt for Rudy Gobert. And this trade was universally clowned on by everyone. It seemed like the Timberwolves had traded away their future for a player who wouldn't even bring them to the playoffs. Everyone attacked this trade. But in hindsight, this move gave them a ton of defense that they were lacking, put a lot of trust in a 2 big man scheme with both Cat and Gobert, a playstyle that the league hadn't seen in years. And at first it seemed like the critics were correct, as the team struggled with offensive spacing and defensive consistency. Plus, there were actually issues with the emergence of Ant as a true star, as D'Lo was struggling to be a third option and primarily a playmaker. All these problems actually made the starting lineup the worst in the NBA in terms of net rating. So Finch and Connolly decided to trade for a true glue guy, sending D'Lo to the Lakers in exchange for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And the addition of Conley cannot be praised enough, as he is truly the glue that holds together the modern Timberwolves. And Jokic even recently called him the most underrated player in the NBA.
Mike Conley, who's the most underrated player in the NBA, probably.
Still, even with this addition, Cat had a late injury in the season, and the Timberwolves finished with a 42-40 record before getting eliminated in the play. The following year, the Timberwolves focused on improving chemistry in their current team rather than adding any new players like they'd done previously, extending both Ant and Reed to long-term deals and signing no new players. And this two big man experiment turned out to work amazingly this season as everything clicked. Ant emerged as a true #1 scoring option and one of the best leaders and scorers in the NBA. Cat and Gobert started to complement rather than restrict each other on both ends. And do you remember the starting lineup last year, which was the worst in the NBA in terms of net rating? In just a year plus a change, they emerged as the third best starting lineup in the NBA. And the Timberwolves ended with a 56-26 record, good for the third seed in a tough Western Conference. And after beating the veteran Suns team and the reigning champ Nuggets, the Timberwolves are in the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 20 years and seem primed to make a finals run. Let me know if you think the Timberwolves can go far and what team you'll like to see next, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.